The India-US trade deal is close. So close, in fact, officials on both sides speak of it in near-complete terms. Yet, it remains unfinished. This is a story of immense opportunity, a partnership that could redefine economic ties. The world's oldest democracies, the world's largest democracies. Leaders in New Delhi and Washington have affirmed a shared goal: expand trade, perhaps doubling it by the end of the decade. The framework has been painstakingly constructed over months of intense negotiation. But as we stand on October 25th, 2025, the final signature remains elusive, held back not by lack of will, but by powerful currents of domestic politics. The reasons are complex, rooted in both nations, particularly India. Consider the recent optics. Modi will attend the ASEAN summit virtually, not in person, a clear signal to avoid Trump for an in-person meeting. Observers say his focus is the home front, the upcoming Bihar state elections. This is not a minor distraction. Bihar is vast and populous, where political fortunes are won and lost. At the heart of the proposed agreement lies a simple but powerful idea: mutual market access through the reduction of tariffs. For years, trade between the United States and India has been robust, but it has been largely one-sided in favor of India, and often hampered by significant protectionist barriers on the part of Tariff King India. The current talks aim to dismantle some of these walls. The United States has reportedly proposed lowering its tariffs on a range of Indian exports from 25% to 20%, or even to 15%, if India completely abandons the Ukraine war, blood-tainted Russian oil. Imagine Indian-made textiles, intricate gems and jewelry, processed seafood like shrimp becoming more competitive in American stores. For these sectors, a reduction in U.S. import duties to around 15 to 20% from much higher levels would be a monumental victory, unlocking billions in revenue and creating jobs. In return, India is expected to make concessions. New Delhi would lower its historically high tariffs on almost all American goods, especially agri and farm products. But this is a red line for India, as it involves a vast rural vote bank for any incumbent political party, even in a banana republic. Domestic politics are not a footnote to this trade story. They are the main text. The timing of the Bihar state elections is the most immediate and telling factor influencing the government's approach. Visual cue: campaign posters and rallies in Bihar. In a state where agriculture is the backbone of the economy, millions live on subsistence farming. Even the perception of a trade deal that harms farmers can be politically explosive. The opposition is poised to frame any concession on agriculture as a betrayal of the common person. Prime Minister Modi's fragile coalition government cannot afford to ignore this potent political suicide. Delaying the final announcement until after the votes are counted is a prudent, almost necessary political strategy. Beyond the electoral cycle, the government must contend with the powerful voices of various domestic stakeholders of Indian politics and policies. Large Indian corporations, while publicly supportive of free trade, have their own anxieties after decades of protectionist policies by both Congress and the BJP, the two main political parties in India, for securing the all-important note bank, that is, political or election funding. Automotive sector, steel sector, consumer electronics sector. They worry that a rapid reduction in protection could erode their market share and profitability. The United States, for its part, is not a passive participant in this war of attrition. The Trump administration is employing a sophisticated strategy of pressure and persuasion, using various levers to advance its interests. One of the most significant is its expanding Russian sanctions regime and tightening H-1B visa policies to pour cold water on millions of Indians' dreams to immigrate to America for a better life. The recent measures targeting certain Russian oil firms are a case in point. While not directly aimed at India, these sanctions inevitably complicate India's energy imports. They create uncertainty and risk for shippers and insurers, indirectly nudging India to diversify its sources of crude. This could push New Delhi toward purchasing more oil from the US or its allies, aligning India's economic choices more closely with Trump's morning mood. Beyond the realm of energy, the US wields a formidable toolkit of trade policy instruments: tariffs, anti-dumping duties, other trade enforcement actions. American negotiators are keenly aware that access to the US market is a powerful incentive. Trump is seeking US market access fees from other countries in the form of tariffs to be paid by other countries, while in reality, it's being paid by US importers and consumers. In any case, the US is using this leverage to press for greater concessions from India. Intellectual property rights, data localization laws, obnoxious regulatory standards, and non-tariff barriers. The potential consequences of this trade deal would ripple across the entire Indian economy, affecting everyone from the small farmer in a remote village to the CEO in a Mumbai skyscraper. For India's millions of farmers, the primary emotion is anxiety. They worry that lowering tariffs on agricultural imports could lead to a flood of cheaper products from the US. Trump is now desperate to export American agri and farm products to India as China stops purchasing corn, cotton, dairy. This could depress domestic crop prices, squeezing already tight incomes and pushing more farming families into debt. While the government has promised to protect their interests, the fear remains potent. A farmer in Punjab, for example, watches the price of American cotton and wonders how his own crop will compete if import duties fall. Although, as a country of almost 1.5 billion people, the world's largest population also needs cheaper food items and higher supplies. The compulsion of political stability is much more than price stability. For micro, small, and medium enterprises, the picture is similarly mixed. Micro enterprises, small enterprises, medium enterprises. A deal could open up new export opportunities for specialized, high-quality products. An Indian artisan making leather goods. A small firm manufacturing auto components could find new buyers in the vast American market. As the negotiations enter this crucial phase, several distinct scenarios could unfold. The most optimistic path is a swift conclusion to the deal. Following the Bihar elections, the leaders of both nations could announce a breakthrough, signing the agreement by the end of November 2025. India would likely secure its key demands: a phased-in implementation schedule, robust protections for its farmers' MSMEs. The U.S., in turn, would gain significant market access for its agricultural goods and industrial goods. This outcome would be hailed as a major diplomatic and economic victory, boosting market sentiment and signaling a new era of strategic partnership that could accelerate trade and investment flows. Agricultural products, high-tech machinery, medical devices. The plan envisions a tiered approach. Some items might see tariffs eliminated entirely, a zero-for-zero exchange. Others would have duties significantly reduced. The agreement is expected to set new, more generous quotas for American agricultural exports. Corn-soy meal giving U.S. farmers entry into India's vast market. This reciprocal lowering of barriers is the core economic logic. But negotiations have revealed India's red lines. The Modi government is aware of its political base and vulnerable segments of its economy. It has drawn a protective circle around farmers, fishermen, MSMEs. These groups represent hundreds of millions and could be threatened by a sudden influx of cheap imports. A deal of this magnitude isn't just numbers, the tariff rates or the import quotas. It's about perception, politics, and timing. The pause lets India manage the narrative, to present any agreement as a national victory, not a forced concession. Recent talks have ironed out technical details but led to a strategic hiatus. Both sides know a durable deal must be politically sustainable. And sustainability, right now, means waiting for the right moment. The backdrop is a flurry of diplomatic activity. Officials shuttle between capitals. Legal texts are scrubbed and polished. There's a palpable sense of anticipation. The substance is largely agreed, a testament to hard work. But the final act requires the stage to be perfectly set. For India, that stage is post-election, with a renewed mandate and space to manage fallout. The world watches, knowing the outcome will reshape global trade and strategic alignment of two giants. India's existing tariffs and IGSTs versus U.S. tariffs and sales taxes reflect a push toward parity under proposed scenarios, 20 to 15% duty bans reducing the overall tax wedge. Under a potential deal, U.S. tariffs could fall to about 20 or 15%, while India adjusts to roughly 15% tariffs and 12.5% IGSTs for goods. The U.S. is India's top combined export market by value. A more open tariff regime could support a sustained climb toward $500 billion in bilateral trade. Therefore, India has insisted on safeguards exemptions, longer phase-in periods for sensitive agricultural products and consumer goods. The government's position is firm. The deal cannot destabilize its rural economy or dismantle its small-scale industrial base. This balancing act extends to India's strategic autonomy. Some voices in Washington want the trade deal linked to geopolitical commitments, particularly reducing India's reliance on Russian crude. India has resisted. It views energy procurement as a sovereign economic decision. Russia is a critical, cost-effective crude source, and abruptly cutting it off would trigger inflationary shock. New Delhi wants a trade deal, not a strategic straitjacket. It seeks a multi-aligned foreign policy, building strong ties with the U.S. while preserving freedom to engage with partners, including Russia. For U.S. policymakers, the goal is to secure a fair and reciprocal deal that opens up the Indian market for American companies and farmers, creating jobs and economic growth back home. This pressure is also driven by domestic politics in the United States. American labor unions, farming lobbies. U.S. farmers, for example, are eager to gain access to India's 1.4 billion consumers. Corn, soybeans, dairy products. American manufacturing and tech companies want a level playing field, stronger patent protections, and an end to forced local data storage. The U.S. negotiating team is therefore under pressure to deliver a deal that is commercially meaningful for these key domestic groups. For them, lower tariffs and streamlined regulations would mean higher profits and greater market share. However, even some of these large firms have concerns. Automotive industry, electronics industry, for instance, have warned that a sudden drop in import protection could lead to a 4 to 8% decline in earnings. Their plea is for a calibrated, predictable timeline for tariff reductions. Ultimately, the trade deal is a catalyst for much-needed, though difficult, economic reforms within India. Simplifying GST, reforming restrictive land laws, reforming restrictive labor laws, lowering the cost of capital for businesses. Making it easier to start a business, enforce contracts, and access reliable energy are all critical. The trade deal, in effect, holds up a mirror to the Indian economy, highlighting the internal changes required to become a true global manufacturing and export powerhouse. The agreement itself is just the beginning of a longer journey of domestic transformation. It's really the start of much more. Given these possibilities, the most prudent recommendation is a strategy that blends caution with decisive action. India should not be rushed into a deal that compromises the livelihoods of its most vulnerable citizens. Protecting small farmers and MSMEs with clear, time-bound safeguards is not just good politics, it is sound economic policy that ensures social stability. At the same time, India should not allow perfect to be the enemy of good. It can and should move forward by opening up sectors that are ready to compete globally, signaling its commitment to reform. A phased, transparent implementation plan gives businesses time to adapt. Rushing headlong into a deal risks a domestic backlash, but waiting indefinitely risks missing a historic opportunity. The best path is a steady, deliberate one that builds a durable economic bridge between these two great nations. But the biggest problem for Trump is his never-ending bullying nature, be it India, Canada, or even China. India is a politically sensitive country and is most probably the most politically stable democracy in the world. Most of the time, the ruling coalition has an effective and decisive majority in the parliament, leading to no U.S. government shutdown like a soap opera almost every year for seeking additional credit limit for public debt. Trump's constant comments about his role in brokering the recent India-Pakistan mini-war and his sudden bromance with Pakistan, coupled with his bellicose comments about the Indian economy and tariffs, and gunpoint trade negotiation strategy, no big political leader can afford to succumb. Thus, Modi is looking for an appropriate time to cool down the huge anti-Trump sentiment in the country, provided Trump stops his anti-India rhetoric. The Modi administration is waiting for an appropriate geopolitical environment to finalize and sign the much-awaited trade deal with the U.S. It has to satisfy domestic political compulsions and public mood in favor of the deal, which may expose Indian producers to uneven global competition. India can't afford to stay in global trade isolation and has to focus on manufacturing job creation for the masses. Also, India can't afford to decouple from the U.S. as it's the largest source of U.S. dollars. In simple language, India needs to maintain good trading and diplomatic relations with the U.S. much more than the U.S. needs. Thus, India is bound to cave in and allow gradual access to U.S. products, including agri and farm items, allowing reasonable times for domestic producers to adjust. The Indian government also has to roll out various structural and process reforms for a level playing ground for this, and thus, the actual implementation of any U.S. or even any EU BTA FTA may take substantial time. The vital question is whether Trump has such patience, considering he is also facing huge backlash from his farm community, a formidable vote bank for him and his Republican Party. In that scenario, although Trump may soon withdraw Russian oil secondary tariffs of 25% on India after December 25, assuming India stops buying it almost fully by then, but Trump may continue to impose 25% tariffs on Indian goods with a threat to impose similar tariffs on Indian services and more restrictions and regulations and fees on work visas to protect American jobs.